Chapter 5. The Aftermath. Killing the Exanimus was the first time Kit had killed a living creature. She frowned as she muttered a silent prayer for the Exanimus she killed, but Kit remembered who she was or what she heard coming from the mouths of her guardians. She is a weapon. She heard repeatedly. Kit was a weapon made by the Kitsune clan, her family, so they could achieve what goal they had in mind, which Kit didn't have the slightest clue what it was. With Kit's field dissipating, she finally relaxed, exhausted from fighting the monster and keeping her field up for so long during a battle. Kit staggered as she leaned against a ruined tree, looking at the aftermath of their battle. Except there was no source of the Exanimus other than its skull and dark mana. Kit absorbed the orbs instinctually. Its smell and blood weren't even present. It converted into mana as its body did.
I should return this home.
The early morning sun was about to rise, when the star-ridden sky from earlier suddenly became a hue of dark blue. Kit was well versed in finding her way by looking up at the stars. Yet again, she had been taught another lesson by the scholar Namari, who mentored her on all the written and knowledgeable non-combative things her mother focused on. She could still use the stars to guide her to where her home.
Since the North Star is over there, my home should be over here.
She tied a makeshift rope to the skull that spanned as big as her whole body, dragging it back to her manor. It was already sunrise by the time she was home. Nikita was expecting her at the gate rather than Dina, who had been the one that left her to fend off for herself. Seeing Nikita caused Kit to cringe slightly, but also ensured that perhaps she hadn't lied to her father. When Nikita saw the skull that Kit was dragging behind her, her features slightly brightened.
Not bad, not bad.
Kit felt a hint of elation after what she heard. Had she finally heard something nice from one of her mothers, let alone Nikita? Perhaps it was all in her mind because, as she watched Nikita survey her as though she was some sort of weapon, Kit felt herself regress into a shell she knew did not exist. Kit would tone back her emotions for the moment as she listened and watched Nikita circling her. Nikita was looking for any weakness or flaw she could point out, but there was nothing to her annoyance.
So you can finally control the range of your field?
Nikita smirked, crossing her arms over her bust.
That's all. You may do as you wish for today. I will let Dina know of your victory.
When those words were muttered from the lady's mouth, Kit's expression brightened, filling her with happiness. It was almost as if she had received a new gift from her uncle to decorate her room. But it wasn't that. Since her mother started treating her like a lesser creature, and Kit noticed, she hadn't experienced happiness like this. A joy that wasn't only manifested by her uncle's visits, or sporadic grandfather visits. She happily waltzed to her room, the interior only being a one-person with a cabinet and a dresser. Family portraits enclosed in a wooden glass frame were stuck on each side of the wall. Beside the bed was a window overseeing the front of the manor, and alas, the Sen warrior gloves left behind by her uncle when she was a newborn settled on the top of the dresser, waiting on her to mature. Unlike before, the room was slightly decorated, but it surely wasn't amazing by any means. It was as plain as the halls of the castles, but Kit loved it nonetheless. At least here, she was free to do as she pleased. She looked at the skull of the Exanimus she had just killed. Its skull was pale white and clean, resembling the color of a pearl, but with the roughness of the ordinary rock. She couldn't believe that earlier. It was pulsating and filled with mana. She also couldn't believe that this thing almost had Nikita gushing over her capabilities. The idea of at least one mother showing an inkling of care brought a slight smile to her face. In this instance, she knew she wanted to keep the skull as more than just a trophy. She wanted to show it off to everyone to see their reactions. The young Kitsune stood there proud of her work, hands on her hips with a big, cheeky smile. Her moment soon vanished upon hearing a knock at the door.
Hey, little one, How's your...
Ketu entered her bedroom with a gentle and happy tone. His attention immediately switched from Kit to the large familiar skull on the side of her bed, and he immediately turned serious.
Where did you get that skull?
Ketu's voice trembled.
I killed it,
Was the only response from Kit. Ketu felt that her mission earlier that morning changed something in her. He couldn't put his finger on it, but he could notice that a big part of Kit's innocence had changed. Even Kit herself could feel that something had changed.
You did what?
Ketu exclaimed.
First of all, how did you cross paths with an exanimus? Secondly, how did you kill it?
Ketu rushed towards Kit to sit beside her on her bed, his expression filled with concern and worry, something far from what she expected to see from him.
Mother Dina woke me up early this morning and brought me to the forest. She said I have to expend my mana, and I realized that the easiest way to do it is if I'm under stress.
That evil witch. She shouldn't have done that.
Uncle Kitu, it's fine. Mother Dina did it out of love. She wants me to be powerful like my elders, so I will do my best to be like one.
Kit exclaimed, receiving flashes of that little glee in Nikita when she saw the skull and compared it with how Ketu viewed it. Ketu's blood was boiling. This child is so pure, so innocent, and the others were able to ruin her so they could live a little longer, he thought. Ketu huffed, and his expression of worry hit his heart too strongly.
You're too good for this family, little one. Too good.
Ketu whispered, as his arms closed around Kit's fragile frame. Even if she's only 5, she has already experienced events in life that only a veteran should. Kit rested in Ketu's warm embrace, and sleep didn't take long to claim her. He laid her down in the bed and then went to find his brother-in-law. It didn't take him long to sniff him out. His presence was quite a strong one after all.
How dare you send your child out into the forest?
Ketu exploded after he rushed into Conan's room.
She could have died. Do you know how the exanimus killed a veteran party of 5 back then? Your temperament never ceases to amaze me, brother.
Conan was sitting on a chair in front of his wooden study table. He faced Ketu as he slowly put away the papers laid before him. He clasped his hands as he raised his eyes to meet Ketu's. His face was beet red from the anger that radiated from him.
Besides, that's not a child. How many times do I have to tell you that she's a weapon, not a kitsune? Sure, she looks like one, but she possesses abilities no kitsune ever had. She still has feelings, and she has her mind. For crying out loud, she's 5, and you let her mistresses send her into the forest filled with sand beasts? Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I hear you say that she defeated an exanimus? Even I haven't heard this from Dina.
Conan joyfully celebrated Kit's progress to exasperate Ketu as well.
You aren't taking me seriously, Conan. Again, just like back then, you think this is just some game. Why are you even training her so harshly to begin with? Can't she not live a normal life?
When Conan looked back up to meet Ketu's eyes, they reflected Ketu's deep malice and hatred. If only Ketu could rectify the missed opportunity he had once, when they were younger, he believed they wouldn't be in this situation.
Calm down, brother. You know, if you frown, your face will wrinkle earlier. This is the best course for the future of our clan. This weapon, is our future. Can't you see? Sure, she may not have one outside of war and bloodshed, but it opens the door for every kitsune to thrive and chase their wildest dreams without fear from other Nikoma and disgusting gods that sit upon their realms looking down upon us.
Conan mocked him again, seeing no signs of stopping at all.
Do you know what will happen when she gets fed up with you and your mothers? She is a child, fucking damn it. The Conan I know wouldn't willingly lead anyone into darkness, but I guess that old friend of mine is truly gone. Nothing but a memory. I don't, but you're going to explain it either way, so spit it out. I still have some unfinished business. If you cannot comprehend why it is we are pushing her, giving her this advantages a princess should otherwise have, then What is the point of speaking to each other? We clearly do not see eye to eye like we once did. I've grown and seen what this world truly is. I think you need to do the same.
He waved his hand, gesturing for Ketu to say his answer quickly.
She will kill all of you, and you can't fight against her because she's much stronger than you. She will see this clan's downfall, and you don't care about it, even if it'll be your fault.
Ketu growled in a severe tone. Conan's attention was finally focused on him seriously.
Kill us all? You may see it that way, but I, along with everyone under me, do not. Your sister didn't see it that way, and she gave her life for this future we are training Kit for. Would you sit there on the other side and desire your sister's life to be nothing more than a waste? Kit will be a well-trained princess that will one day rule over the country. But she will also be the catalyst to the god's downfall. I'll see to it with every fiber of my being she does. No one will stop me. Not my father, and certainly not you. If you want to assure yourself that she won't turn against you, I advise you to start acting more like a father and not an asshole who doesn't care about his child.
Ketu breathed heavily, granting Conan his back. He was ready to depart, but the cold response from his former friend froze him in place.
You finished? There's the door. Thank you for your advice.
Conan said as he returned to his desk. Conan spread the papers he held across his desk, reading them one by one as he utterly ignored Ketu's presence. Ketu bit down on his lip, again being dismissed like he meant nothing. To think, he once called Conan a best friend at one point in their lives. Without another word, Ketu left the office. Their conversation was over, and it was up to Conan whether to heed Ketu's warning. Outside the corridor, Kimi waited outside.
You're too weak, Kimi stated. I agree with my life mate. That's no child. That's a monster that we created to guard us. And you want to play dress up and read her stories before she falls asleep? Don't be this pathetic. Our clan must remain vigilant and strong always. Worry not. My turn comes within a week. I'll teach her the correct way to be.
Ketu just growled back and went down the corridor, exiting the castle as he didn't want to acquaint himself any more with these monsters.
I'm sorry, Kit. You must wait a little longer before getting your freedom.
He whispered under his breath, thinking of a future where his niece would be happy and free. Until then, the young kid had to endure for her freedom. As the years came, her patience slowly cracked, but in the end, she did withstand for 6 more years of her life. Chapter 6. 1 of a half. Today was another day for Kit's training, but as she kept improving on specific tasks, she found her training much easier and less demanding compared to before. However, she didn't notice one crucial fact. She was getting stronger. Kit agreed that they became less harsh to her because she had been working so hard on her training. The more expressive mother from the Octad, Kimi, was training Kit on transmutation and the proper capabilities to maintain said technique for longer than Kit could in her current state. Training amassed to something more, though as time ticked away.
Again!
Kimi yelled. Kit nodded at her mother's behest, trying her darndest not to crack under the immense pressure she was starting to feel now that the training had taken a wild turn elsewhere. She was told the training was for a more complex and intricate form. She could transmute her limbs whenever she desired to dip her toes into the vast pool of weaponry. They were supposed to be training for the whole day until a particularly familiar face entered the garden. Kit's expression beamed up, effectively distracting her from her training.
Hey, Kimi.
Ketu greeted, his demeanor far less scrunched up and angry than when they met.
Yes, I know you're still practicing. Yes, I know. I'm now distracting Kit from the task. And no, I'm not going away. I have to talk to her.
Ketu grounded out. He did not even give the mother a chance to talk. Kimi was mainly brash, outspoken and brutish, but did not act upon the situation. Who would have thought an impulsive being could withhold from any form of action or speech when she was known for doing so.
You made it clear you're not going to leave, so do what you must.
Kimi groaned, arms crossing over her bust.
Come on, little one. I have to show you something,
Ketu said. He began to guide her to the woods. Without the young Kitsune asking for permission, she immediately followed, leaving her training and mother at her rear without one semblance of care or desire to look back. Instead, Kit was jovial and enlivened to go on an adventure with her uncle. After all, Kit thought any place was better than this castle.
Bring her back by sunset. She still has so much to learn.
Kimi ordered Ketu as she returned to the manor without waiting for a response, which she didn't receive anyway. Kit has seen the forest countless times. She had even memorized how the trees looked to the point she could go home without utilizing the stars, as she was taught by her tutor Namari. She was usually taken there to train her destructive magic through sen manipulation, where the damage can easily be mitigated in a secluded natured area. But as soon as they arrived at their destination, Kit saw a part of the forest she had never seen before. A large clearing in the woods revealed a beautiful lake, surrounded by flowers so jaw-droppingly gorgeous that the rush of excitement coursing through Kit had flared to fireworks that exceeded them. The sunlight shone without the trees obstructing its light, and around it was a small field of flowers with colors she had never seen before. This was truly marvelous. How did she go all over the forest yet never visit this area?
Wow, this is so nice and new. Where are we, Uncle?
You've never seen this before because I put a sand barrier in this forest. This area is invisible to most creatures, and the barrier influences them to steer away from it. Except for you, young lady.
Ketu gently spoke as he poked Kit's nose. She reacted with a giggle, and he took her around the lake after grasping her hand lightly.
Come this way. I've got something to show you. I want to teach you about flowers and plants and their importance.
Kit nodded hesitantly.
Uncle, I know they look beautiful, but they are boring. If they have any purpose, it would be to make anything look beautiful. They're to look at,
said Kit, making weird gestures about the flowers being gone. Ketu chuckled at the kid.
I understand where you're coming from, but believe me, the flowers serve more of an important purpose than you can ever imagine,
Ketu said as he stopped by a flower on the ground. The flower's petals were a beautiful, deep purple with yellow outlines. It had huge leaves that glowed even with the afternoon sunlight on them. After removing the leaves, Ketu carefully held the flower by the stem without touching the petals.
This is an Icrothelda. Beautiful, isn't it?
Ketu asked as he looked down at Kit, staring at the flower in awe. The bright and glowing flower was reflected in her green-blue eyes. When Kit reached out to grab the flower, Ketu pulled his hand away from her.
Uncle, can I take it home with me?
She looked up towards Ketu with her sparkling blue-green eyes.
No can do, Missy. He shook his head. That's one reason you need to learn more about what's in our nature. Sure, you may have a genius in a tutor and the amazing capabilities of your mothers, but there is no one teaching you about nature, what's around us, and what marvels they hold.
Kit stood up, surprised by her uncle's response.
Really? Did I do something wrong?
You see, Kit.
The uncle pointed at the yellow outline of the flower.
A Nicrothelda is a deadly flower that can paralyze an entire family of boars with just a single petal.
The Kitsune gulped at the realization, yet still in awe about how the flower's colors.
The yellow outline you could see on the border of these petals is the toxin, and once you touch it, you wouldn't be able to move for a day. But there is a time in its maturity where it can be safely plucked out of display.
When will that happen, Uncle?
When the yellow outline disappears, the flower becomes a lilac color. But if you let the flower remain in the ground for too long, it will suffocate, and it will lose all its beautiful color.
Kit frowned.
But I like it more when it's deep purple.
Just like this flower, Everything has its right time. You may be content with what you have now, but in the future, you will realize that there's a much better option out there.
Ketu gave his niece a gentle smile.
The world is big outside this forest, little one. Someday, you'll understand me better than you do now.
The color of the Eichelfelder in Ketu's hand turned to lilac after he infused it with his sen, and unlike its deadly phase earlier, it was now safe to be given to her. Kit brightened up when her uncle handed the flower to her.
Thank you, Uncle. It's not as great as earlier, but it could do.
He chuckled, reminiscing a past after his fallout with Kit's father.
That's what I also said when I met your aunts.
Ketu thought, brimming light shining down on his form as a trio of hands pushed him forward. Ketu sighed deeply, comprehending the imagery in his mind and doing as he believed they wanted him to do. Ketu led her to another patch of flowers, all having different varieties of color, shape, and sizes, yet two stood out. In the center of the flower patch was a black flower. All life around it was wilted, devoid of life essence, except for a white flower. Those two flowers together seemed to possess seen energy of opposite purities.
Wow, I don't like the black flower, Uncle.
The dead flowers around it were colored black, lying flat on the ground, but they continued to walk closer. The wilted plants beneath them cracked into dust as they stepped.
The black flower that did all this is called Astrana. It only brings death, distraction to life, and despair to whoever holds it. If made into a poison, it guarantees instant death, regardless of what kind of creature you are.
The petals of the Astrana had thin white streaks around them, its black color comparable to that of a black abyss that swallows all light.
And that white flower?
Kit curiously pointed at the white flower beside the Astrana, which seemed to be the only flower that did not seem to be affected by its effect.
It's called the sanitatum, bringing healing and purity to everything it touches. If a sanitatum is used to supplement any medicine, it would be 100-fold more efficient.
Ketu squatted, patting Kit on her shoulder as he looked into her eyes to say,
Each flower has its complement, the dark to the light, and the good to the evil. It is a divine law that the gods above have imposed upon this world. That is the same as with any other kitsune or even any living thing in the world. Everyone has their other half that acts as their complement.
Did you find her?
said Kit.
It's a bit complicated for me, little one. Perhaps a story best told when you are much older and can understand more. But to make things simpler, no, I haven't met her yet. But it's sporadic when someone finds their true half.
Ketu plucked out a mature Eichelfelder nearby, handing it to Kit as she clasped it with both hands, eyeing its beautiful purple petals.
While I haven't found my other half, so to speak, it's important to find them because it allows us to grow stronger and live longer. Remember that.
Her uncle held Kit's hand, gesturing for them to leave.
Here, come on, let's go. Ketu motioned to Kit. You know, it's not just one mate, Kit. You're infinitely more powerful when you have multiple mates. Like what I said with the flower. The world is tough, and we are stronger when we are together. That's why we, Kitsune, have huge families. And for us, our strength determines who our ruler is.
So, that's why my father has so many mothers but only has one real mother?
That's right,
Ketu answered.
Hear it. My sister, your true mother. Unfortunately, you haven't met her or spent time with her, but I assure you, she was a wonderful person, albeit a bit argumentative, but still a wonderful kitsune.
In the middle of the clearing, the lake shone brightly as it reflected the sunlight, still fresh with air as they left the barrier. When they passed, the two walked back to the manor, watching birds sail back to their nest and watching the fishes swim by a small creek, often like he once did with Conan when they were still young boys, back when they were on better terms. Ketu glanced down at the glee and sense of freedom in Kit's ventures. Again, he saw his younger sister in her. Furthermore, he was taken back to that fateful day he lost more than just his best friend. Ketu bit down the urge to tear up, fearing he would freak the young Kit. Instead, he savored the images of young Conan, the best friend he lost, Hirit, the sister he lost due to her joining Conan's cause, and the trio of indeterminable figures in white, each fading into the light after the duo had broken through the forest back to the castle